Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever it is that you are, wherever you may be. Thank you very much for making us a part of your day. I am Brad Franklin, Digital Media Relations Manager here in Chesterfield. Very glad to tell you that Chesterfield Behind the Mic is on the air once again. One of the fun things about doing the show, and I feel like I start a lot of these podcasts with one of the great things about doing the show, but one of the great things about doing the show is that you get a chance to find out of a number of different things that the organization does. And some of the things that the various departments do, they're very kind of forward facing, right? The public is super involved and there's a lot of interaction between the two. And then sometimes you have a department where there's no interaction between that department and the public at large. And then you have some like internal audit, which we're about to talk to their director, Khara, Durden, about Fraud Week and everything that they do at internal audit. And theirs is a little bit in between where you have some moments where there's some interaction with the public, but a lot of it is still organization based. So first, Khara, welcome back to the podcast. How are you?
I'm great, Brad. Thanks so much for having me back.
Very glad to have you. Very glad to get to. I always like to talk to folks from the various kind of departments that maybe are, I don't want to say off the beaten path per se, but maybe there aren't a lot of opportunities throughout the year to touch base with, to kind of promote something that maybe you guys are doing and that kind of thing. And Fraud Week is obviously a big focus for you. Before we get into to all that, I always like to start with a little bit of an intro. So tell me a little bit more. Or for those who maybe missed you on the last time you were here with us, tell me a little bit about sort of your background and how it is that you kind of landed here in Chesterfield.
Okay. Well, prior to coming to the county, my background was mainly in public accounting. I'm a CPA. And so in public accounting, I performed external audits and prepared tax returns. So definitely wanted to get away from preparing tax returns. That was not my favorite thing in life to do. But when we moved to Virginia back in 2017, I took a job here with the Chesterfield County Internal Audit Department just as a regular staff member. But our director retired in 2020. So I took the opportunity to apply for directorship and got that in 2020. I've always enjoyed being a CPA and auditor throughout my career, but Chesterfield has been a really special place. I've been here about 8 years so far, so I'm really enjoying the work that we do every day for the community and Chesterfield.
When in terms of size, give folks a little sense of scope. How many folks are we talking about internal audit?
We're a very small department. I believe we're one of the smallest. We have 9 full-time employees. Okay. And I think we're even smaller when you think about the size of the organization that we serve, because we are what we call a shared service. So we provide services to both county and schools. And so, we're serving the entire organization, and that's fairly rare for a department, and we're very small. Yeah,
I was going to say, because if you think about it, the government itself, the county government is, I want to say fairly large, but maybe not the largest in Virginia, but the school system is one of the largest.
Yeah, I think it's the 5th largest.
Yeah, it's one of the largest. So when you take those two elements, you put them together, and for 9, a mighty group of 9.
Yeah, small and mighty, yes.
Small and mighty.
Yes.
Now, in terms of what you guys do in internal audit, take me through sort of how that looks and how best you can maybe translate it, so to speak, from maybe the official sort of way that you guys would describe it versus maybe how a layman like me might think of it. What is how would you describe the work that internal audit does?
That's a great question. So, our mission is to provide objective and independent evaluation of programs throughout the county. So, we have a lot of employees that have been doing their job a really long time. And when we come in and look at a program, we're a new set of eyes on that program and how it's operating. And so I think that's the main mission of what we're trying to do. We primarily look at programs. So there's a lot of different types of programs throughout the county and school. We're looking at those mainly for compliance, if there's a compliance element, but also trying to find efficiencies and effectiveness opportunities for our programs throughout the organization. We're really trying to promote excellence throughout our organization. So that's kind of what we do on a day-to-day basis is our auditing services. We also help our external auditor every fall with the financial statement audits.
Gotcha.
We are able to perform special projects by management requests if they ask us to do something special. And then, like you and I are going to talk about, we do have the fraud, waste, and abuse program in our department. So we're investigating fraud, waste, and abuse allegations throughout the year.
Before we jump to Fraud Week, I do want to touch on something real quick, which I think is interesting, because if you asked me before I ever met you or worked here at the county, I would think that if you said internal audit, it was almost exclusively money based.
Oh.
But for what you guys do, and for folks who are listening to this, it's actually, I mean, that's a piece of what you guys do. But
Yes.
so when you talk about efficiency, you're not just talking about like in terms of where money is spent and all this. You're actually looking at how the programs work, and
Yes.
your help me understand a little bit more about what that looks like when it's not just the sort of monetary piece of the puzzle.
Okay, that's a great question. Yeah, so in my prior job when I was a CPA at an auditing firm, we did mainly look at financial statement audits.
Right.
So that's sort of the difference between an external auditor and an internal auditor.
Right. Yep.
And so you're right, as internal audit, we do, of course, look at finances a lot.
Right,
so
yeah.
I don't want to say that we don't ever do that. But we don't have to only look at that.
Right. Yeah.
So for example, when I'm saying we're looking at program efficiencies, we might be looking at, are we doing everything on paper?
Right.
Do we have too many employees doing the
Right.
same thing?
Yes.
Are we spending our money in
Right.
the most responsible way that we
Right.
can? Are
Yep.
we wasting money? Do
Yeah.
we need this program? Is it providing value to our community
Right.
still? So things like that, I think we can look at that are not necessarily financial, but also provide value
Right.
to our organization.
Yeah. I mean, and this might be a kind of a weird analogy, but I was just thinking as you were talking, like fuel efficiency, right?
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
yes.
That's if you think about the way a person might think of that, yeah, it does matter how your vehicle is or isn't good on gas, but there's a lot more that goes into that helps that process.
Absolutely.
And so efficiency is not just is the money going where it should be, but it's also obviously figuring out the redundancies and duplication and that kind of thing about
Yes.
sort of the efficiency of the program as a whole.
Exactly.
Now, obviously, fraud, waste, and abuse is something that we've talked about before on the podcast. Certainly, I know you have been out there a lot talking about in the last few years, and certainly Fraud Week is a great opportunity to do that. How would you describe or maybe define fraud, waste, and abuse? And can you give me some examples to kind of help illustrate the way that plays in sort of the bigger picture for your department?
So here in Chesterfield, we actually rely on the Code of Virginia has defined those terms, so we just use the same terms they do. That helps us a lot when we're, developing our policies
Right.
and holding employees accountable.
Uh-huh.
But fraud is really, to me, the way I like to think about fraud is when something is done intentionally
Right.
for personal gain. And to me, that's the biggest difference, is an intentional act.
Yeah.
Waste and abuse it could be accidental. Like
Right.
I accidentally didn't return my rental car on time, or I forgot about it,
Right.
or whatever. It may be unintentional, but it is still a waste of resources.
Right. I used way too much paper in the printer, and I
Right.
just keep doing it over and over again.
Right.
And it's not so much that I'm doing it because I'm trying to gain. It's just because
It's
I'm
not for
being-
personal gain.
Right.
Right, exactly.
I'm just doing it. Yeah.
Right, but it's still considered
It counts.
waste.
Right. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And then, abuse is sort of excessive or improper use of resources, kind of like you were describing.
Yeah.
But things that can be considered fraud, waste, and abuse are falsification of records, wasteful spending, like we just talked about. It can be time abuse, employee time abuse,
Right.
theft of funds or assets.
Okay.
Using any county asset for personal reason.
Right.
And then, something we're seeing more of is cyber attacks against employees.
Okay.
Things that are coming in from the outside trying to, trick us into spending money
Yeah.
or things like that. So we see a variety of different issues,
Yeah.
Throughout the years.
And then there's a piece of the fraud, waste, and abuse, hotline that is not just focused on county folks who see something and report it, but then there's also a part of it that is very focused on those who are on the outside who see a thing involving county or schools to report it. What's the breakdown really between maybe our internal aspect and then the external? What's the sort of mix between those two when it comes to the hotline?
Honestly, it varies from year to year depending on what's going on,
Right.
but we get, equal amounts from both. So that's why this is important to me. This Fraud Awareness Week is getting that message out to the community so
Right.
that they know where they can go if they have allegations.
Right.
I do believe our employees, our school and county employees, hear about it more often because we have annual training for everyone.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of activities throughout Fraud Awareness
Right.
Week. So I think they, they're hearing about it probably more often.
Yeah.
But, the community is pretty good about notifying us as well. We have a lot of opportunities for the community to reach us and
Right.
report fraud, waste, and abuse when they, want to let somebody know about something.
Let's dive into that a little bit. So during Fraud Week, obviously, for us, there's a news release, we've got social media posts, there's a lot that we do as a county org to sort of push that message out. What are some of the things, the ways that people can sort of report things, and what are some of the options that they have, not just obviously this specific week, but obviously throughout the whole year? What are some of the ways that people can sort of report those concerns?
Yeah, so outside of what we're doing for Fraud Awareness Week, we always have our website available.
Right.
So if you go to Chesterfield.gov, there's an internal audit page there, and you can always report fraud there. We actually have a hotline set up. It's an anonymous phone number that you can call. It's 804-318-8000. So you can call that anytime. And again, that's an anonymous way to report. We don't have any knowledge of the phone number that is making the call. We also have the public portal for concerns and assistance, which the county has set up, and it's a place on the website where you can report a variety of concerns, not just fraud, waste, and abuse, but we are one of the options there on the portal.
Okay, good.
We also have email. We're audit at Chesterfield.gov, and anybody's welcome to contact us that way.
Right.
You can use our business phone number or address. We get letters sometimes through the mail, anonymous letters, and so people use our actual address to contact us. But all of those options are on our website, and they can be used at any time.
Yeah. Now, I know that, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, that there are a lot of what I would call like public-facing folks in our organization. They interact with the public on a regular basis. And I think that, if you work in utilities, or if you work in the treasurer's office, right, the value that you bring to the county, to the resident is pretty obvious, right? How would you sort of describe the value that internal audit, and certainly through the fraud, waste, and abuse hotline, how would you sort of describe the way that you guys sort of help the organization as a whole?
Well, like I said, I think our main goal is to help our organization move towards continued excellence, and the way we do that is through, providing those auditing services and opportunities for improvements if we see them. We also give out kudos if people are doing things well. I think that's very important too. But
yeah, for sure.
Our community can see what we're doing. We're a very transparent department. We put all of our reporting online. You can see every single one of our reports, all of our results, all of our recommendations. We also report publicly at the Audit and Finance Committee, which are open meetings. We report at both county and school Audit and Finance Committee meetings. So there's a variety of different opportunities for the community to see what we're doing. They can ask questions. We take calls all the time about anything that we do. We just try to be very open and honest about what's going on in Chesterfield, and recognize what we're doing well, and recognize where opportunities for improvement might exist.
Yeah, cool. Now I got two more for you. First, I want to kind of give folks a little bit of an idea of like what kind of information should they be thinking about sharing if they wanted to reach out, and let's say they wanted to, whether it's inside or outside the organization, they wanted to sort of report something. What information do they need to share in order to report it, and how does that work?
That's a great question, because one thing I always encourage is lots of detail. I'm an auditor, so I like that detail. But if you use our portal or our online submission form, it will walk you through what we would like to see. So, we want to know, what time did the incident occur?
Right.
Do you have a picture? Do you have a document you could upload to us?
Right.
Who was involved?
Right.
That kind of thing. Anything you can tell us that would give us some sort of guidance about where we need to look and help us refine our search. That's extremely helpful. Sometimes when allegations are very broad, it's hard for us to understand or
to dig
how we can look into anything.
I gotcha.
So any sort of detail, I just highly encourage. The more detail, the better when you call.
So it's almost like if you have a detail, you should just share it.
Yes.
Because even if you don't think it matters, it might matter.
Exactly.
And then I guess I should also ask, because there are some things, obviously, that you guys cover on a fairly regular basis. What are some of the things that are outside of your sort of purview, and if like, let's say somebody reaches out to you and it's a thing that you guys don't handle, what happens to that concern then?
Yeah, there are a lot of things that we don't handle. Again, I think we've mentioned we do mainly handle county and school related items involving county and school employees and programs.
Right.
A lot of things happen outside that area. And so on our website, we have some resources that people can contact for other allegations that they need to make. Or, we get a lot of calls to us and we help those people get to the right place. So there's a lot of resources out there for other allegations if people have them. Okay. We may not be the first stop or the best stop, but we do try to get you to the right place. Right.
All right. I'll get you out of here on this. What can large organizations like ours do to prevent fraud, and why do you think this is essential when it comes to the public?
Well, there's actually some key components that large organizations can implement to prevent fraud or to at least decrease our vulnerability to it. I mean, like you mentioned, we're a huge organization, and so there's always going to be a bad actor here or there. But overall, as an organization, I think we do these 5 things well here in Chesterfield. The first one is having a code of ethics for employees. Both Chesterfield and schools have high ethical expectations for all their employees. Right. The second thing that's very important is establishing hiring procedures, and that includes doing thorough background checks on everyone. That's educational, credit, employment history, things like that. As well as checking references. Yeah, right. Making sure that all that process works the way it's supposed to. Right. The third thing that we do well here, I think, in Chesterfield is training our employees in fraud awareness and prevention, making sure employees know what the warning signs are and how to report, who do they report to. Right. I think I mentioned we do an annual employee training for everyone. We also do new employee training, and we also have done training for specific departments upon request. So we're always available for that if anybody asks. The fourth thing is having the fraud hotline. So studies have been done that indicate that tips are the best way to detect fraud, even better than internal or external audit. Those internal, external audit don't really find as many instances of fraud as tips. So that's why this is so important. Yeah, that makes sense, because if you think about it, even as good as a process might be, it's only focused on the thing that is in the line of the process. Right. But if there's a piece of it out here that's sort of secondary to that, that's a place where tips will bring that into focus. So right. And if you think about it, again, we're 9 people. Yeah. But if we get, the thousands of employees involved and the hundreds of thousands of community members involved, that's a lot more information that we could have that we would just never be able to do. Absolutely. So tips is best practice. Hotlines are best practice for large organizations. Yeah. And then finally, just communicating regularly with staff about the policies we have in place and how to report suspicious behavior. So we do that. So. Well, Khara, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast, talking to us not only about Fraud Week, but about internal audit as a whole. Very much appreciate it. Always good to sit down with you and talk a little bit about things with you. We appreciate your time. Thank you, Brad. All right. Make sure you check us out on social media. On Twitter, it's at Chesterfield VA, and on Instagram, it's Chesterfield Virginia on Word, and on Facebook, you can check out our podcast pages. Search Chesterfield Behind the Mic. Now, make sure to follow or subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, or wherever it is that your shows are sold. And if you're so inclined to give us a rating and review, we greatly appreciate it. As always, a video version of our show is available on our YouTube channel as well as on our website at Chesterfield.gov/podcast. That's also where you can submit feedback anytime, make a suggestion, or just reach out to us. You can watch the show on WCCT Thursday through Sunday at 7, on the weekends at noon. That is Comcast Channel 98, Verizon Channel 28. Lastly, check out Chesterfield.gov/connect with us to find out a number of other ways to connect with Chesterfield County. My thanks to my director, Martin Stith, my executive producer, Teresa, Bonifas, and all the good folks from Constituent Media Services for all they do. And my thanks to you for joining us today. So, from all of us here in Chesterfield, thanks again for making us part of your day. We'll see you again real soon. Take good care. From blogs to podcasts. And I'm very glad to tell you that Chesterfield Behind the Mic is on the air once again. Weekly video segments and newsletters, social media, the latest community news. And this is your Chesterfield News Minute for September 19th. How to get in touch, and everything in between. If you want to know about Chesterfield County, our Connect With Us webpage has you covered. Chesterfield.gov/connect with us. Connect with us, your source for all things Chesterfield.